easier said than done. But that's one thing is the lesson I learned from it is creating a process, and don't deviate from your process. Hire with your core values. You know, our mission and core values is we are care, compassionate, accountable, respectful, and ethical. Apply those to that person in front of you, and do they match? If they meet all those, then it's probably the right person. So I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, welcome back to another episode of Home Care Hindsight. I'm here with Dustin DiStefano, CEO and co-founder of A Place at Home. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for people who aren't familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Dustin DiStefano. I'm the CEO, co-founder of A Place at Home Senior Care, a father of three, a franchisor. I started my own, well, I'll take a step back. I started my own agency in 2011, did that for about 5 years, and then started franchising it in about 2016, 2017. Self-taught myself how to franchise things, didn't know what I was doing. So it took us about a year to really figure out how to structure our franchise system. And today we have 51 owners with about 70 plus territories across the United States. So that's 2000. So about 7 years into it now.
I think the journey from you running this business in like a single location or maybe a couple of locations to then deciding that you want to franchise the business model out is a really interesting pathway. And it's one that, obviously not a lot of people take. What was the kind of decision-making process that led to, all right, this thing's good enough, let's franchise it out and see if other people can make the business successful in their markets?
Yeah, so we had started in Omaha, Nebraska, which is where I live today. And actually, that's the home of two of our biggest competitors, which would be Home Instead Senior Care and Right at Home Senior Care, both franchise headquarters. Prior to starting my agency with my partner, I actually applied to be a business performance coach at Home Instead, in which I didn't get the job. So I saw how they were doing it through franchising. So going into it, I had an idea, like, eventually I want to franchise this because look how well they're doing, right? They're like
Sure.
a 100-pound gorilla. Or the 100,000-pound gorilla, or however that saying goes. It's a really big gorilla. And, I got into it and I said, if we can compete on their turf, right at home and
Sure.
Home Instead's turf, then we should be able to compete on a franchising side, and show that we have clout, that we can go into a market. So we went in with a passion, a purpose to better home care at A Place at Home. And then we started and just started going off. We got to about the highest we peaked was about 2.5-3 million in revenue. And then about 4 and 5 years in, I was like, Jared, let's scale this. Let's start working on the business, not in it, which is any leader or business owner needs to do. Actually, I think one of your questions down the road here is what's a big mistake that home care owners make? I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they make is we get so caught up in the day to day. And so we had hired an operations manager to come in and kind of alleviate those day-to-day responsibilities while we started franchising. Me and my partner, Jared Evanich, were actually we were tossing between both private growth or franchising.
Sure.
I had always wanted to do franchising just because I had seen it through Home Instead, and Jared was more of an analytical person. So he would put them into a spreadsheet and look at the pros and cons. And, long story short, we both landed on franchising.
Yeah.
Primarily because of the ownership aspect. Home care is such a touchy-feely, intimate business that when you have a hired manager, right, like they're not guaranteed to be there. You want them to be there, right? But turnover it's a hard business. So turnover amongst managers in this industry can be difficult to work with. Whereas the owner, you're tied to that business. Right.
Yeah.
But also that's your marketing. You're going to go out and say, I own this business. When I'm taking care of your mom and dad, it's me answering that phone. It's my team answering the phone. It's not a hired manager. I might not be gone tomorrow because I got a better job at an assisted living or something like that. Right. And so just having that was like the biggest thing for me. And today my biggest passion is working with the owners and seeing their ups and downs. We're like a repetitive business as a franchisor, not to go off the beaten path, but I do that sometimes and I apologize. But with the franchisor, like I do this over and over again. I see a new owner come in who's scared out of their mind to start a business, right? And they buy that franchise because they don't want to be alone. Yeah. Right? They want to be able to have support and systems. So I see that person. And then I see the second phase. They're 1 to 2 years into it and they're scaling and they have a team and they're building that. I see that phase. And then I see a successful phase. I have seen closure phases where we're like, you're just not, this industry is not for you. Yeah. Right. I've had to close with you. So I've sold some. I've resold some for people. Sure. My team, but my team has. So I've seen almost every different aspect of home care, and we do it over and over and over again. And with doing it over and over again, we keep learning more new things and issues people are having that we can use to teach other people. And so franchising was it for us, and I haven't really looked back.
Yeah. What's the operational change in getting a new franchisee up and running that you felt like was a big breakthrough for you guys that's most recent, top of mind?
Processes. When we first started, we were all about sales and marketing. That's my background. Right. And how do we sell home care? How do we create your why story? How do we find the right owners and then we turn that into how you're going to go out and connect with caregivers and clients and the community and the referral sources, right? How do we do that? We spent so much time. What we found over the first couple of years is all of a sudden they would be doing really well at that, but they had zero operational experience. Sure. So my naiveness, I thought everyone would be like me who want to look at my P&L every day and look at my QuickBooks and understand my finances, know my KPIs. And no, that not everybody prioritizes that. And so they bring this business in, but then their processes would lack. And you're like, they're losing clients because they didn't bring them on right. Yeah. And so now we've shifted that and we just started a new coaching structure this year where we have a franchise operations coach in Shane Thompson who came on. And he scaled a home care business to $11 million, had multiple locations in multiple states, sold that, came on board with us. And now he is taking all new owners that come on board and make sure that their process sounds like their processes are signed off. He signs off on them. And then they go, Tiffany she's our franchise business coach. Yeah. And so is Jennifer. She's our franchise business coach. We make that handoff to those two. And then those two push them on the marketing and sales to drive in business. But now they're operationally signed and we have a coach who's coaching them on operations. We just started that this year and we're super excited about that.
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, we're way off the beaten path already, but I love it. So I always ask people when they come in the show, what kind of person are you? Because I want to be able to ask that just in general, but you kind of can only ask this question when you make the rules and show on podcasts. So in order to ask you what kind of person are you, what's one household appliance that you have like way too many of?
Yeah, so I have a cooking apparatus, like a grilling apparatus. I have about 3 or 4 of them. I have a griddle. I have a Traeger grill, pellet grill, and I also have a traditional smoker. In addition to, I just bought something just for a turkey fryer just for Thanksgiving. I'm getting rid of that. Sure. I didn't even use it. I got scared. I didn't want to fry it, but so I have and so now I don't have that anymore. I'm getting rid of it, but I don't like cooking outside. I don't like cooking inside. I don't like the way like grease smells or oil or anything if I'm cooking. So I try to cook outside as much as possible. And then in the winter, I actually have my father-in-law come over and he helps me move all those apparatuses into my garage. And then I move my car over and then that's my kitchen is my garage. And then I just open it and put a heater out there and I'm good. So that's one thing I like to cook and like to cook outside.
Cooking outside. Well, Dustin, thanks for joining the show. I bring people on who have accomplished a lot of stuff in home care and who people know in this business and are pretty well respected. And I bring those people on not to ask about like all the good stuff that they've done, but instead to ask about a big mistake that they've made in their career and the stuff that they learned from it. So Dustin, what's your big mistake?
Well, I got some notes here because I wanted to prepare here. I would say my biggest mistake was, and as a home care owner, it was hiring too fast. I would say and I see that mistake happen with a lot of our owners too, is we go in and we need a team. We need that scheduler or a recruiter and you're just drowning. So you just hire, I wouldn't say a pulse, but you tend to overlook things, and then you spend all this time and energy and money and investing in them and kind of putting them on a pedestal like, I need you, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden 60 days goes by and it's just not working out, and you're angry at yourself, you messed up. So I would say that's my biggest mistake, one of my biggest mistakes that I did as a home care owner. I mean, even as a franchisor, I've hired people that I thought we were going to be great. I let it go too long, and I should have, fired. I always tell my owners this: hire slow, fire fast in this industry. It's easier said than done. But the lesson I learned from it is creating a process, and don't deviate from your process. Hire with your core values. And our core, our mission and core values is we are care, compassionate, accountable, respectful, and ethical. Apply those to that person in front of you, and do they match, right? Are they compassionate? Are they accountable and are respectful and ethical? And then if the answer is yes, they meet all those, then it's probably the right person. So I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned.
Take me back. Like, what was the first hire that you made that you realized, oops, we did this out of desperation. We didn't hire the person. Like, what was that? What was that like?
It was a scheduler. Won't say her name, but I remember her to this day, and it was 10 years ago. This is some advice to home care owners too. Anyone who, for this is, we gave her a lot of freedom right out of the gate. Like, we were doing marketing and sales. I just handed over. Well, all the processes, which is another mistake, started being developed. I almost developed an entire HR department off of her, giving her caregivers her personal cell phone. So then I had no idea who was doing what. They were calling her directly. Then all of a sudden she, long story short, we ended up letting her go. She had every single caregiver's number. She texted all of them that we terminated her, not inappropriately, but wrongfully terminated. I had like a caregiver coup that I had to deal with. I had to bring them all in and be like, listen, she was gone for cause. I'm not going to share with you anything, Mrs. Caregiver, but know that I'm here for you. And I had to re-engage my caregivers. So that I'll never forget that moment. I gave too much string out of the gate and too much power, and it came back to bite me, for sure. Me and Jared both know let that happen on accident.
What was the timeline, like beginning to end of her tenure with you? Was it like 6 months, a year?
No, she was with us for over a year. And the problem was we knew this wasn't a good fit price 6 to 7 months in.
Sure.
But we gave her so much control or responsibilities that both of us were in the mindset, like, if we terminate this girl, I mean, we're kind of screwed. We have no idea the things that she's done. So we kind of lived with it. And then finally it just boiled over. So again, using my mistakes as an early home care owner, hire slow, fire fast, and everybody's replaceable. That's another thing that in my mind, is everybody is replaceable. It might suck, right? It might not be a fun experience, but you're not going to shut down, and one person in your organization doesn't control the whole thing.
Yeah. What are the tools that you've used because I think there's this challenge of like the home care owner who can't delegate, right? They hire a scheduler, but they won't relinquish control of the schedule. They hire the recruiter, but they still insist on being involved in the interview process. And so, that's kind of one end of the pendulum swing. You've got to like trust your people and delegate and give them, the agency and the authority to do the stuff they need to do. But then I think the other end of that is, how do you let go and delegate but not be in a situation where you're like, oh, this person isn't a good fit. I can't plug back in because I'm so disengaged from that part of the business.
I think you got to do little things. We started doing, it's called the Entrepreneur Operating System. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It's a book written by Gino Wickman called Traction.
Yeah.
We integrated that, and that gave me a pulse. So what the concept is, for those that don't know it, is you essentially create a 10-year vision, 3-year vision, 1-year vision, quarterly vision, and then you break that down into a weekly scorecard, which are also your key performance indicators.
Yep.
You delegate those certain key, like revenue, or let's say face-to-face interviews is a key performance. And you would make your recruiter is the one who fills that scorecard item out. So you give them responsibility to fill out these metrics every single week, and you have a Monday meeting. And you go through that scorecard, and if that person's not hitting their metrics, or they say they're meeting their metrics, but you're not seeing the active caregivers, you start to get your red flags, and you start using numbers as your accountability measures as opposed to opinions and emotions, right? The moment we started doing that, it helped my retention of employees. We grew. I teach owner. This is our coaching style with our owners too, on when we coach our owners. And because you can't hide from numbers. right? And when you use metrics like that, it removes, like I said, the emotional aspect of it. And all you do is stick to facts that, hey, listen, you're not performing to the way we need. Well, I do this, this, and this. Great. But what is that doing for you? Right? Because it doesn't look like it's not converting to anything. Like salespeople, this is a great tool for home care salespeople. I always say that salespeople in home care, this might sound bad, but it's true. They're the best people at looking really, really busy and not accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
And so using that, they can say I did 30 to 40 meetings last week with referral sources. Well, then why'd you only get one prospect? Who are you meeting? I'm meeting so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. Well, why aren't they giving you this? And you could just catch it, right? But also you could use it as coaching. Like you're going after the wrong people.
Yeah.
And so that was our biggest shift.
Are you seeing, this is kind of probably a yes, of course we are, but are you seeing people make the transition from feeling like the metric is managing them to them managing the metric? Like, are they connecting the dots on their own of like, oh, this, activity to outcomes is lagging. Let's take sales, for example. I need to do these kinds of things differently in order to hit my metrics better? Or is that stuff that you're still having to stay involved in the coaching of?
I think that on a franchisor to franchisee, that's the best way to measure success. And if they're following our roadmap to success, right? Because that's our job, is to coach you. You got to execute. Yeah. Franchisor isn't out there marketing for you. We're going to give you the plan, the roadmap, and how to have those conversations, right? But you got to go and do it. Yeah. So, when we look at owners who are struggling, the first thing we always look at is how many meetings did you do this week? I did 6. Okay, well, we talked about doing 20 to 30. Why'd you do 6? Well, I did this, this, and this. Tell me about that. Like, why did you recruit so much this week when you only have 3 clients active right now? You don't need to be recruiting. And so I think that it's just on the coaching side, they have to realize what drives those numbers. Yeah. And that they drive them, like you said. The numbers don't drive them, they drive those. Again, that's been our biggest in the last couple of years. We've been coaching like that. And that's what's helped our owners grow pretty fast. Yeah.
Feels like something like, you can't hide from the numbers, makes you take ownership for the thing and think about like, okay, this is all just funnel math at the end of the day. Recruiting, sales, all of that is how many people did I put in on the top of the funnel? And then for each of the steps through that process, how many people did I get out at the bottom? And, at a certain point, you've got to start coming to terms with, okay, there's changes I can make in the middle here that are going to drastically change my results. All right, let's move to the next segment where we talk about something that is either underrated or overrated in the industry. But this week, Dustin, you're giving me 2 for 1, which we always take bonus content here. So tell me about something that's underrated in the industry.
I think the most underrated, this might sound like it's pretty self-explanatory, or the caregiver's role. And you might be like, well, the caregiver is the most important. They are the most important. I think, though, it's a different type of underrated, is a lot of agencies where I've seen gone astray is they let the caregivers develop their relationship of their agency and them, right? And what I mean by that is with non-competes and all these new laws that are coming in, non-solicitation clauses on employee or contracts between clients and agency owners, they're pretty much non-enforceable now, right? You can't do that. Yeah. And so when a caregiver comes in, I think the underrated is they're just there to perform care, but they develop a relationship with that person. And so once they start developing that relationship with that person, if the agency owner is not, the agency owner or even the agency staff is not developing a relationship alongside the caregiver, then you run the risk of that caregiver stealing your client, or that client trying to go and hire your caregiver privately because you've lost that relationship. Does that make sense? So not only are they providing the care, they're developing the relationship between you and your agency. And if you as the owner or you as the agency admin staff aren't making those phone calls or doing field supervisory visits or going out and meeting with clients, and you're just depending on that caregiver, you're at risk of losing business to that caregiver. And I'll tell you this, people might be like, well, I have a $10,000 direct hire fee. If you've collected $10,000 from that client on that, good for you. All right. But it doesn't happen normally, right? You're not going to sue a caregiver. What are you going to get out of it? And so I know that's probably not the topic you want to talk about, but I think that is a majorly underrated role, is maintaining that relationship between the agency and the client and not just letting the caregiver do it all for you. What's overrated
Yeah, I was going to say, to loop back to you there, because I think this is this is a conversation I haven't had before, but it makes sense to me intuitively, is it's, what's the value that your agency is providing on top of what the caregiver is providing to that client? And that's stuff that we already should have been doing because it's a way to differentiate ourselves from other folks in our market. It's a way to make sure that there's additional levels of quality assurance and that we're providing really excellent care. But it is interesting because this is now the functional dissolution of non-compete agreements is the forcing function that makes us actually get involved with our clients, or else there is that level of risk. And are all caregivers going to do that? No, there's plenty of these folks that are going to, but the incentive is there to work privately to make more money, get more hours, because there's no agency involved that is an additional cost structure to that care. So I think that's really interesting. And I think people are going to be listening to this and thinking, oh, I need to change my relationship with the client, but also what's the value that your agency is providing to the caregiver over and above just a job?
Exactly. And that's the thing is you also, on the other side of the coin, not just on the client side,
Yeah.
but on the caregiver side, you got to build a culture where they want to work for you. The old times of like, hey, they want to, this is like archaic is all it can be now, is I'm paying them. They should want this job. That doesn't happen in this industry. I don't think that happens in any industry anymore. You have got to build a culture where that caregiver feels appreciated, where that caregiver knows that you care what they do. Just little random acts of kindness. I used to send text messages out daily just to random caregivers and say, hey, I hope you have a great day. You know how they would respond to me at some of them? And I knew that we would not have a problem, but we were having a problem on my staff, is they would respond, thanks, what do you need? And I'd respond back and say, I don't need anything. Because what you would catch with that, just that little random act of have a great day. And when they respond like that, you go to your scheduling and say, do you guys only call Susie, caregiver, to ask her to go to shifts? Is that all you guys do? Because all she does is views us as that we're asking her for something, right? And so do these little, I always tell owners, it's not the recruiting process. It's not the hiring process. It's not the onboarding process. The orientation helps if you have a good orientation. The matching process is good if they put them with clients that they relate with. All that's good, but that's pretty standardized.
Yeah.
It's all the little additional things that you need to do. Happy birthdays. Again, random acts. One of our owners did this great thing where they interview caregivers at the beginning and they get like their about me. Yeah. What's your favorite snack? You know what they would do? They would have a day like once a week where they'd go out to random caregivers with that paper and they'd go into the home and the caregiver might not even be there. They'd visit the client, check box, you're building a relationship. It's not the caregiver there. You're meeting the client. And then they would drop off their favorite snack and say, hey, when Susie comes tomorrow, give her this snack from us. Just those little things. And what's a bag of Cheeto cost you? $1?
Yeah.
Or $2 probably in today's day and age. So that's the thing. You just can't take anyone for granted in this industry. Clients, caregivers, office staff, nothing.
You're speaking our language right now. One of the things that I hear all the time and that is so emblematic of the challenges of building a culture is caregivers say, the only time I hear from the office is when I've screwed something up or when they need a favor. And it's just such a gap. There's no water cooler for people to bump into each other at in home care unless you manufacture it. And some of the things that you described are the ways to get at that. What's something that's overrated?
Technology. I think that everyone is infatuated with AI, myself included, but I don't think you need to get so consumed by the technological fix, right? At the end of the day, and this is a very simple process-oriented visit. You talk to a client, a prospect, a referral source on the phone. The number one referral source you're going to get is word of mouth and building relationships in the community. No technology can change that. Then you start getting leads. Technology can change that. There's CRMs and scheduling softwares out there that can manage referral sources and your initial calls and your assessments and do all that. That's great. That's 10 years old now. And then you come in and then you go out, you meet a client in the home. There's no AI that can go out and do a care plan. Now, I do use ChatGPT to help me enhance my care plans. I will say that. You can do meal plans, right? You go out and find out what the favorite foods are, or look in their fridge, take a picture of their fridge and say, hey, what kind of meal plan can I use with what's in this fridge? And AI will generate you a meal plan. That's amazing. But then you do the recruiting and the matching. There's no AI that's going to tell you who's compassionate, who's not compassionate, and who's the best fit. They're going to take skill sets, right? They can do that. But people are so consumed with AI and technology right now. I think it's pretty overrated. 8 years ago, there's a big scare about the Uber. Remember Uber when it came out? There's a big scare about Uberification of caregivers, right?
Yep.
And I said to him, I'll pay attention, but I'm not worried about it. And then people would say, why aren't you worried about it? Because no one's going to get on an app and order a caregiver to come over and do private things for them. And if they do that, they still have to manage that person. And the reason why people hire agencies is they don't want to manage it. I have babysitters. I have 3 kids. If a babysitter, I get a call, I call my babysitter and she calls me an hour before I go. Hey, I'm not feeling well. I can't come and sit. Sorry, you can't go to dinner tonight with your wife. I'm livid. And that's only 1 hour.
Yeah.
Right. Or 2 hours. Right. That's 2 hours with just me and my wife to go. I'm pissed. Think if you're a caregiver or a client's family member and you get a call from a caregiver saying, I can't go to my 8-hour shift because I'm not feeling good. And you're like, that's 8 hours. Mom can't be alone. I have to go there now. Right.
Yep.
Way different. So I think that tech is good. AI is good. I don't think people have to get consumed with it. I think it's overrated.
I think what you've said is really good. At the end of the day, like everything in the business is people, it's process, and it's technology. And I think that there's a kind of myth out there, or this kind of cult following of, well, we can use really great technology to fix a lack of people and a lack of process. And at the end of the day, technology should enable and scale the best processes and the best people. There's no replacement for all those things that you just described that are very empathetic, person to person, highly personalized, very vulnerable kinds of things to have. And that's part of what makes, I think, from my perspective, home care such a unique space.
Yeah, we invested in, it's a company called Employ, which is an applicant tracking system. And we pay for that for all of our owners to drive in as many applications as they possibly can. But at the end of the day, it's on the owner to get engagement from those applicants and get them bought into coming to the interview, to then going to their shift, to then buying into their culture. Technology can't do that, but technology can drive those in. And that's where I like technology. They can help your processes and your transitions and your flow charts and everything. But you and your people have to be able to then take that, what you get out of technology, and apply it and get back from it. If you can't do that, technology does you no good.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's move to, we talked about a big mistake that you've made. What's a little mistake that you see home care owners make all the time? And if they quit, it'd make their lives or their businesses like 10 times better.
Well, we kind of talked about it. I think the biggest mistake is they don't empower their teams.
Yeah.
I think they get so engulfed in day to day that they have a hard, and I was one of them. I had a really hard time letting my schedulers do their job.
Yeah.
Right. You can ask him. I have a caregiver on my staff right now who I promoted, and let's just share that story. Danny, she's been with me for 10 years. She's now our director of franchise systems support. She teaches people QuickBooks. She teaches people WellSky, our CRM. She teaches she's the biggest support system probably to our entire all our owners.
Yeah.
She was a caregiver. And when I sat down with her, I said, Danny, I'm going to move you into scheduling. And if you buy into what I'm putting down and you do a good job, I will invest in you and I will take you where I can take you, as far as I can take you. However far you want to go with me, I'll take you as long as you can buy in. And fast forward 10 years, she's like my right-hand man. Like she knows what I'm thinking before I even know it. So people in my staff will even go to her and say, I want to talk to Dustin about this. What do you think? She goes, well, you better approach it this way.
Yeah.
Right. That was a caregiver of mine. I had another gal with me. She actually just recently quit because she wanted to go out and be an entrepreneur and start her own content company. But she started with me as a scheduler as well. Yeah. And I said, hey, you're on here. I'll take you in. She was a business coach of mine. And so I share with that is that home care owners need to empower their people. You have an entire pool of caregivers that may be great at caregiving, but they also want to self-promote them. They also want a career path. You can find where owners make mistakes is they have a great caregiver and they say in their mind that I don't want to promote this person to scheduler because selfishly that's going to cause me a problem with the client they're taking care of. And so what I always tell people that say that is, listen, they're not going to fire you because you promoted somebody from their care to then managing their care, because then they can manage their care and oversee their care from afar and find a new replacement that they know would fit their needs. Yeah. To me as a client, I like that. Right. And so don't hold caregivers in that spot because you think that you'll lose a client because of them. I hear it all the time. Promote that caregiver and empower them. And then once they come in to ask them their goals, I ask every caregiver when I interview them, what do you want out of life? What do you want? And they're like, I want to be a nurse. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I would introduce them to nursing schools. I had nursing school connections because that's where we would recruit.
Sure.
And so as long as you try to focus, you're naive to think that you're going to have every employee and every caregiver stay with you for the lifetime, right? I had 2 people who stayed with me for 8 years. I wish, but if you put into them and empower them to help you grow your business, not only will your business grow, but your retention will be good. And while they're there for 2-3 years, they've done great things for you, but they're going to move on to something better that they want to do. So don't hold them back, empower them to move forward.
Yeah. I think too, that's such a powerful signal to everybody who may not be on that kind of career path. Hey, we've had people start here who became schedulers in the office, who went to nursing school, who, became like a lead caregiver. And even if that's not this person's journey, the fact that they're in an agency that invests in their caregivers in this way is huge.
Exactly. I mean, I haven't had I would tell you this, a personal goal of mine, David, is I want a franchise owner who is a caregiver of mine, someone's in our systems. And I know Shane, our ops coach, he was a former franchisee of a competing brand. He had a caregiver that he trained and now is a franchise owner over that brand. So he has one up on me. So now, and I'm a competitive guy. Yeah. So now I'm like, Shane, I'm going to get somebody. We're going to do it.
All right. I want to move to a segment. We've talked about some stuff that went badly this week, but I want to hear about something that's happened lately in your business that you're really proud of.
Yeah. I mean, on a franchise development side, we had our best year yet. We brought on 16 new owners this last year.
Wow.
On a operations side from franchisor and franchisee, our relationship's stronger than ever. But also the path and the vision that we have this year is really taking our agency and getting that image of home care into the healthcare continuum. And what I mean by that is 12 years ago when I started my agency, we were known as sitters. We were known as companions. We were just coming over and basically being babysitters, right?
Yeah.
Well, in today's day and age, with the U.S. government putting money into Medicare Advantage plans and up in Medicaid waiver rates and VA rates, there's third-party payers now paying for us that see us as part of that continuum. In order for us to really be in that continuum, we got to start acting like it.
Sure.
And so one thing that I'm really proud of is we are starting to track our outcomes. Like I could tell you right now, I have one agency right now who has 150 clients, almost a $5 million agency. They track their outcomes. I can tell you that their readmission rate of those 150 clients in hospitals last year was 9%. The average readmission rate across the nation is 15.3%. So what does that tell you? That tells you that home care, that agency there has made massive impacts on people's lives and them readmitting to the hospital and having a good outcome with their health. But also financially to those third-party payers, a hospitalization, I think a daily rate for hospitalization is $10,000+ a day. Just reducing that 6% of it, we'll go down to 100 to make it easy. 6 clients that didn't remit by improving from the average of 15% to 9%. That's 6 clients, $60,000 a day that you just saved to the insurance companies.
Sure.
Right. And I think that if home care in general, if the whole industry started acting like that and showing that, we would have more payers that come in to say, we need to start paying for home care. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm proud of is that we have owners who are starting to use their data to go out and tell stories to home health, to hospice, to SNFs, to post-acute rehabs, to hospitals and say, listen, it doesn't cost you to send somebody to us at all. But if someone comes to us and engages with us, we're going to help you by helping them, preventing them from coming back into your care. Does that make sense?
No, that's really exciting, especially with, continuing trend of hospital at home. Patients are coming home much sicker than they would previously. And home care has to be a part of delivering data-based outcomes that mean something to payers and to the entire healthcare continuum. So love that you guys are coaching your owners to start doing that. It's where home care is headed. So I love it. Before we sign off here, what do you want to plug? Where can people find you? How do you want people to get involved?
If you're looking, I try to help as many people as I can. If you're an independent agency, always feel free to connect with me personally on LinkedIn and ask questions. I'm always happy to help. I live by the statement that if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. If you're looking at getting into home care, just go to aplaceofhome.com and reach out. There's a web form right there you can submit. We really want to know what your passion is, why you want to get into it. And then our development team can reach out to you. and we can see if it's a fit, And the one thing everyone needs to know, sometimes in franchising, people just think, oh, the franchise, they'll sell to anybody just to get the franchise fees and all that, right? We don't accept everybody. Our process takes about 90 days. We want to know that you are doing this for the right reasons, because we as a franchisor will be more successful. Us as a brand, I should say, will be more successful by the people that come in and match our mission and vision. And so if you have that and you have that passion to want to help people, look us up. And last thing I'd say is, a lot of people think you need healthcare experience. Just to share, I was 28 years old, had zero healthcare experience when I got into it. I was renting cars for Enterprise. All I wanted to do was help my grandmother when she got older. She's still alive with us today. And that's part of my story that started this business. And as long as you have a story like that, franchise or not franchise, your likelihood of success is a lot higher. So that's my plug, replacehome.com.
Dustin, thanks so much for making time to come on today. On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.